Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Headspace, and in particular we're going to talk about Headspace on the Enfield number 4 Mark 1 rifle. First things first, the chamber on this action is empty and it is safe to handle. Okay, Headspace. What is Headspace? Well, to put it as simply as I can, headspace is the distance between the head of the bolt. This is a bolt head. A complete bolt looks like this. And the head of the bolt simply screws in. So if we look at this barrel here, and we pop in this dummy, this snap cap, what we're looking at is the distance between the two, but without the cartridge in there. So we're looking at the distance between the barrel here and the bolt head there. And we have to have enough headspace to give us a little bit of wiggle room when the cartridge is put in, like so. And the reason for that is we need to allow room for the bolt to close, and we need to allow room for the cartridge to expand when the primer ignites the main charge and drives the bullet down the barrel. Okay, so how much clearance do we need between the bolt head and the mouth of the chamber? Well, conventional wisdom tells us that our headspace should be between 64 and 74 thou. 64 being ideal and 74 being the maximum allowed for field conditions with a service military rifle. Okay. Obviously, if you're reloading your brass, you're going to want it closer to 64 than 74. The reason for that is this is a cartridge case, a military cartridge case. If you look at the end there, you'll see a darker piece of brass, and then you'll see a lighter area. Yeah, there's quite a distinct line. And that is caused by the expansion of the gases, which happens equally. The pressure is equal in all directions. So this bit gets pushed against the chamber wall, but this bit gets pushed back until it hits the bolt head. Okay, and then it will take up the whole of the space. It will take up all of the head space. So what we're doing is we're stretching the case here. We don't want to stretch it too much. If it was excessive, the case would split and we would have a release of gases, and we don't want that. So headspace is important. Now then, why does it vary? Why do we have to check it? Why don't we just set it once and forget it? Well, it's to do with two things. It's to do with the general way that the rifle is made, the way it was designed and made, and to do with wear. These rifles are not significantly different from the very first rifles that the British Army adopted in 1888. Same type of system. The rounds are fed from a box magazine, rear locking bolt. This design dates back to the very earliest bolt action rifles, the creation of James Parrisley, and first seen in the Lee Remington and then in the Lee Metfords and rifles since then. So it's an antique, it's a veteran, call it what you will. This particular rifle is over 70 years old. the number 1 rifles are over 100 years old now, but we still use them, and we still use them on a regular basis. How many 100-year-old or 70-year-old cars do you see on the road? Not many. But these rifles date back from the earliest times, and we still use them. They're not perfect. If we wanted a modern rifle like a Remington 700, we'd just have a piece of round stock here, and we'd drill and attach things to it to make it into a rifle. But this was machined from a forging back in the days when labour was fairly cheap, and it's imperfect in wartime conditions. Semi-skilled workers were making these. The lads were out fighting. The older guys and women were building these. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you know, people that hadn't probably served apprenticeships or whatever were building these things. It was essential to make them good enough, get them out to the troops. So there's going to be problems with tolerances within the rifle and what have you. And a way to take up excessive slack was to have different size bolt heads. And we're very lucky that the Enfield Small Arms Factory have devised a scheme so that we know more or less what we're dealing with. If we look at the bolt heads, they have numbers on them. So, if you can see a number 1 on that, just let me zoom it a bit. Excuse me, I am very unprofessional with cameras, but it's just the way it is. Sorry. So there's a number 1 there. The bolt that's in the rifle itself, if I can get it to focus, yep, has a 0. This has a number 2, and this also has, whoops, where's my lens? There we go. This also has a number 2 on it, although you might think it's a 3. In actual fact it's a 2. Okay, so the bolt heads are numbered and they're all different lengths. Right. But what are they? Well, if we look in this book here, it gives details of the bolt heads. And here we go. The standard sizes are marked 0 through to 3 on the lug of the bolt head, with the number 0 bolt head being 0.626 inches long and the sizes differing by 0.003 of an inch. Bolt heads marked 0, 0 and 4 have also been observed. There are people that will dispute that. I don't really want to get into it. The guy felt strongly enough to put it into the book, so I'm going to take that as being read. Okay, so we're going to start with a 0 at 0.626. Goes up in 3 mil increments to 0.623 for a number 3. Now what are the 00 and the 4? Well, let's assume that it's 3 less than that for the 0 and 3 more than that for the 4, but they're probably as rare as hen's teeth anyway. Okay, so that's a theory, but in real life there's a variation. It's called imperfections, and the British are really good at it. They start off with an imperfect design and add other things to make it work better. So we find variations, and this is internet wisdom that I've collected. I'm not quite sure who posted it originally, but anyway, for bolt heads marked 0 we have a variation between 0.620 and 0.625, and so it goes on up into 0.640 maximum for a number 3. How do my bolt heads figure in all of this? Well, I've measured them And for those 4 bolt heads that you just seen, these are the actual dimensions. So my 0 comes in at 0.625, the 1 at 0.628, and the 2s are very close together, only 1 thou difference between those. And they fit within those parameters. So we're not doing too bad. We know that we're in the ballpark. But the thing that we gather from this is that if you have, say, a number 1 in your rifle, and you've got too much headspace, and you think, oh, well, I'll put a 2 in, that might be the case, but you might also need a 3, or you might just need another 1, or, you know, it's very hard to tell. So you have to do some actual measuring, and don't just assume that the numbers actually refer to a definite number. They don't. They fit within parameters like these. Okay. Right, so we've talked about headspace, why we need it. We've talked about headspace. Where was I? We talked about headspace as regards safety. One thing I did forget to say, that headspace might increase on a rifle with age as it wears. You know, as your locking lugs down here wear, obviously your bolt will come back slightly or make more space at the head, so you might have to compensate by putting in a longer bolt head. That's the other main reason. And you can go all the way up to 3, and even a 3 will last a long time, but if a number 3 bolt head is not giving you enough headspace, is giving you too much headspace, I'm sorry, but your bolt needs replacing. It's buggered. So get a new bolt body and start from there. Right. So how do we measure it? Well, the best way to do it is with a headspace gauge. And these are a piece of machine steel that looks very much like that and ends where my thumb is. And you would put this in the chamber and close the bolt on it. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the dimensions are, but let's say we have a go and a no-go gauge. If the bolt will close on a no-go, that means that the headspace is excessive and you need to tighten it up. Similarly, if it will not close on a go, then you don't have enough headspace, so you need to go to a smaller bolt head. There are others where you can get a small disc which fits on the end of the bolt here, and go and no-go gauges. I don't have either of those, so I'm going to show you an approximation that will work in most cases, but do not take this as gospel. If you're in any doubt whatsoever, try to find the gauges or find somebody who has the gauges. So an approximate way of doing it is finding an unfired case. It's an oldie, but this one hasn't been fired. And a used primer. You can see the ding in the primer, and you can see there's no fulminate or whatever it is left in the back there. So what you would do is you would push that into the cartridge case. It's rather fiddly. I've only got one hand, and these damn things escape on you and will go rattling across the floor. So I'm not going to use that. What I'm going to use is this case here that's got a fired primer in. So you would put those two together to get this. The easiest way to do it is to put the action vertical with the muzzle down, and then you can just pop it in and you won't lose the primer. So let's put this in, and then we would close the bolt on it, close it firmly, make sure it's all the way down back here, make sure it's all the way down, and what that will do, it will push the primer in. And then pull him out, and you should be able to see, where is it? You should be able to see that the primer, oh, not very good. The primer does protrude. Sorry about the focus, this is terrible. There we go. The primer is protruding just a tiny bit. You can see that? Okay. So the bolt wasn't able to push it all in. Still protruding, so we know we've got a bit of headspace there. So let's check it. Okay, so what we need to do now is we get our caliper and we take several measurements. I'm not actually going to do it, it's too fiddling. I'm trying to look through a camera. It's not working very well for me. Let me just zoom back a bit. Okay. So we measure the overall length of the case. Okay, and then we measure the overall length including the primer. Remember, the primer is protruding a bit. And we write down those values, and then, excuse me, I'm making a bit of a mess of this. Then we measure the thickness of the rim, okay, and we write down that value. So what we've got here is our unfired case with the rim and with the primer. So we have the primer protruding. We know the length of the case. We know the length of the protruding primer to the end of the case mouth. So we know how far the primer protrudes. And then we measure the rim, the thickness of the rim, and we add the thickness of the rim to our primer protrusion, and we will get our headspace. Okay? Fairly simple, really. You just have to have an accurate vernier caliper. Okay, there is another way. I'm not entirely sure if it's as accurate, but it will give you excuse me, a reasonably good good idea. You take your, where is it now? You take your unfired case, put it into the chamber, and then you get some solder, some soft solder, and you can put it in the gas hole on the side. If I can see it, there we go. So you can pop that through, make sure it feeds all the way across. Pop that in. I won't do it just now, but, and then again you close the bolt on it, pull the solder out and measure with your caliper. There'll be a little squash bit there, just measure that to see what value you've got there. Add that value to the thickness of your rim and you will know what your headspace is. So, I hope that has been of some use to you, to know what your headspace is, why you need to keep an eye on it, why you shouldn't let it be excessive, and a rough approximate method of letting you know if you're in the ballpark. Obviously, the two methods I've shown you are not a substitute for getting the proper head gauges, but to give you an idea how far away you are at home, it's a pretty good way of getting the idea and understanding the concept. Lee Enfields are very forgiving. What makes them such a good battle rifle is the fact that they will work under all kinds of conditions, which includes sloppy fit, being full of muck and what have you. So you should be okay, but err on the side of caution all the time. So there we go. Headspace in the Lee Enfield number 4 Mark 1. What it's all about, why we do it, how to check it. have fun shooting, enjoy yourselves, look after yourselves, and take care of one another. Talk to you next time. Goodbye.